So I just kind of use discretion, but we do need to get the information to other men as much as possible. So let me go back a little bit. So like what I was wanting to share today, two of them was oh we had already talked about this a little bit as far as our souls is concerned. And when we're talking about like trauma, that's what we're talking about. Like the part of us that's impacted by trauma is our soul, right? And so we talked about us being tripartite, being spirit, soul, and body. All right. So we're talking about that soulish realm and those five components. And everything that we've been kind of speaking to today is in one of those five realms. Like our mind, will, emotions, imagination, our intellect. In essence, that's our soul. Right. So my mind being my heart, the seat of my emotions, our will is the actions and decisions that we make, our emotions, fear, anger, happiness, mistrust. Somebody talked earlier about emotional intelligence. I don't know if that was Pastor Ford or not, but having high emotional intelligence, right? And that's not a worldly thing, that's a biblical thing. Like somebody who has high emotional intelligence is in control of their feelings and also sensitive to the feelings of others. Like that's two components out of the five for a high emotional intelligence. And so unfortunately, if I'm not in control of my own emotions or I'm not sensitive to the emotions of other people, I can't discern them. I'm gonna have a lot of bad relationships. That's just how it is. And then my imagination, like my thoughts and my desires. We understand how important our imagination is. So much so that Paul encouraged us when we have imaginations that aren't godly, that we ought to pull them down. Right? We have to pull those things down because they're affecting the way that we think and we believe. And so it don't matter who you are, like where you from, the science works this way.
I know so.
All thoughts lead to feelings. All feelings lead to behavior. All thoughts lead to feelings. All feelings lead to behavior. I behaved because I felt a certain way. I felt a certain way because I thought a certain way. So a man that is not in control of his thought life is not in control of his behavior. Like we could just put the two together. Those are not disconnected. A man whose thought life has run rampant, like anything captivates his imagination. Like he uses his five senses to bring anything into his mind and what he's thinking on throughout the day, right? That man's behavior is going to be out of control. That's exactly what happened to David and a host of other people that we admire, right? The imagination got the best of them. And then our intellect, our ability to reason and understand. The only reason that we're on this platform today, all of us, is because there's some level of intellect that we're using. Like we can come into this setting and reason together. Though we may have disagreements, though we may see things from a different perspective, we can still have a conversation. Y'all know that there are men who can't do that, right? It's like if you don't believe what I believe, you don't see it the way I see it, we can't talk. We're not gonna have a conversation, right? And then sometimes that can be on the worst end of the spectrum. When you don't believe what I believe, I should hurt you for not believing what I believe, right? And so those five components of our life are super important. And so I was just sharing how even in the Word of God we see the importance of the soul. We're given 3 John 2, where John says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that you not only prosper, but this component of your being called your soul that needs to prosper as well." And so we know that there's several ways that you do that. I won't go into that for the sake of what we are today. But when it comes to our soul, we're talking about the process of sanctification. Like our spirit is justification. Our bodies one day will be glorified, glorification, right? But in that middle component, our soul is sanctification. So what is sanctification? It's me taking this area of my life and improving it, working on it. I first have to set it aside, right? So I have to set aside my mind, my will, imagination, my emotions, and my intellect. I have to take those five things in my life and set them aside and work on them because those things aren't saved, right? So they are being saved. And so Paul gives us plenty of ways that we sanctify when we get into those, but one that's particular to all of us that we're familiar with is Romans 12, 1 and 2, right? So offer your body a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto the Lord, which is a reasonable service. And be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Right? Be not conformed to this world. So he talks about coming out of the world and developing the mindset of the kingdom. And he calls that process transformation. And so transformation in the Greek is metamorpho. So we get our English word metamorphosis. It's the process that a butterfly goes through. So we start in pupa and a larvae to a full-fledged monarch butterfly. That's the same thing that's happening with our soul. It starts in one place because we had to come out of the world's way of thinking, and then we're getting it transformed to another place. Like, so inside of that process is our trauma. Because as we're going through this transformation, we got to deal with a lot of the stuff that happened to us. Not from a position of it defeating us, but from a position of understanding that it has to be changed. And so that's a process for some people. And so I believe this is where, because I've been talking about, being visible. One of the things that I've been doing here is churches have been inviting me to help them develop a mental health team. So I've like put a program together to help them become educated about this. This isn't new information. I just think maybe somewhere along the lines, the church lost sensitivity to this. But one of the things that I'm working with pastors, because they're trying to figure out a lot of what is happening, y'all, is, and I can speak to this specifically because I work with a lot of pastors on this. People don't feel like people are sensitive enough to what they have going on in these areas of their life, right? And so if I come to church and then I have an issue, like if I broke my leg, they're gonna call me they'll let me come up to the front of the church and pray over my leg, right? And pray, brother so and so, be healed, and God would help him in his healing process. But what happened if you told somebody you just came out of the inpatient facility because you had a mental health breakdown, right? They might not call you to the front of the church for that. You might not get any attention for that. And so a lot of that stuff is happening. And from my perspective, just the conversation, pastors are like, no, I don't have the language for that. I don't know how to deal with that, right? And so a lot of it is because we've ignored this component a little bit, right? We're dealing with the spiritual part and we okay with the physical part, but we don't necessarily want people kind of talking about this. And if we do, it's like just a few things that we can do. Like you pray, and if the situation isn't changing, that means you don't have enough faith. Or it's a demon. So if it's a demon, you just cast it out. So if I told you to pray and we try to cast out the demon, and you're still struggling in these areas of your life, our hands are in the air, right? And so we see people start in front of the church, the middle of the church, the back road, and out the door, right? And so, unfortunately, the people in life that are outside of fellowship are answering these questions for people. I will tell you firsthand, gentlemen, because I had direct experience with this, there are people who in church, in your church, in my church, who when they leave church, the day before they come to church on Saturday, they were at your local psychic's office trying to find a remedy, trying to find an answer in witchcraft and voodoo. I'm not telling you what I'm guessing, I'm telling you what I know. Personal experience. People singing in the choir, deacons, ushers, consulting with diviners and sorcerers. They'll tell you, say, Pastor, I've been trying to have a child. My pastor laid hands on me, told me there was going to have supernatural reproduction. Didn't happen. So yeah, my sister told me about this witch that was up the street who was getting results. That's happening. Young people, teenagers, I talk to them, telling me, I hear what y'all saying in the church, but I got these issues going on, and I'm getting answers over here, right? So, y'all keep doing that. So, like we have to like deal with this inside of the confines of the church. And I'm telling you, this is more prevalent than what you want to know. I get calls on Mondays from pastors who say, Pastor, just tell me something, because I want to kill myself. Like prominent people who in the pulpit preaching, who dealing with the issues of the soul and don't have any answers, right? Brothers like you and I, day to day trying to manage their families, go to work, issues, don't have necessarily have answers. All right, so this is why I bring this up, and I bring it to this meeting, because I feel the responsibility to us to have this conversation. And I know we're out of mental health month, but I did want to continue the conversation. So over the years, and we talk about the soul, these are the areas of my life. These are areas of our life that I feel like are impacted. And so I like mnemonic devices, so all of these are S's. And so I bring these up because we can take this list, you can screenshot this list, and then go back and then say, okay, like, where am I in these areas of my life? Because your soul directly impacts these areas of your life. And so, like, we must have plans to address the things that are in our life. Nothing is going to happen by osmosis. I tried that in college, it doesn't work. You got to have a plan. The book of Luke, I can't remember the chapter and verse, but it says, who sits down and desires to build a tower, who doesn't first sit down and count the cost and see if he has sufficient to finish it? Who sits down and doesn't make a plan to even see if it's going to work? And so if we have to have a plan for our spiritual health, if your doctor gives you a plan for your physical health, Dr. Banks is on here, he gives you a plan for your dental health, right? Brush twice a day, floss. What makes you think you don't need a plan for your mental health? You got to. You have to. And so I shared with us last time all of the men of God in the Bible who had these specific struggles, but then God gave them a plan. Sometimes they were in the plan and didn't even know they were in the plan. Like Elijah, sitting by the brook in a suicidal mode, right? God had to meet his physical needs first, his natural needs, which was to feed him, right? Then to comfort him, then to give him a sense of identity and send him on. And so that was a strategic plan. So let's just look at a couple of these areas. So like self-worth. And so all of our conversations today have been reflected in one of these areas. So self-worth, like how I view myself, my trauma, if not seeing through the lens of scripture, if I don't have a firm grasp on this, my trauma could affect the way I view myself. This is what I've learned. People will treat you the way that you treat yourself. People will view you the way that you view yourself. You cannot act any differently than what you believe about yourself. People have tried that before, like trying to take on other people's personality. That doesn't work. Doesn't last, right? And so I have to, one, first fix the perspective that I have on myself. And so for us, the word of God gives us who we are, like how we should view ourselves. We see that in Genesis, how God says that we're made in his image and his likeness, right? So anything less than that viewpoint is not true. And a lot of times it's demonic. And so y'all know I have this saying, you know, I didn't come from my parents, I didn't come from my neighborhood. I came through my parents, I came through my neighborhood, but I come from the mind of God. That's scriptural. Before I formed you in your mother's womb, agnosos, I knew you, right? So that is my vantage point. So I derive my self-worth from that scriptural identity that I'm made in the image of God. So if somebody calls me fat, stupid, dumb, ugly, all those names I got growing up, you know, I have to change that. If you're a man and you feel in the sense of low self-esteem, low self-worth, because your job has given you your identity, or you know, in our culture, you know, your self-worth is based on your net worth. You know, how much money you have in the bank, right? What you're driving, right? None of that is accurate. All of those things can add to our self-worth, but they don't give us our self-worth. That is strictly because I was made in the image of God, right? So I may have to go back and do some investigation and look at the area of my life. Like secondly, my self-confidence. So for me, self-confidence is how I express myself. And a lot of that has been taken away. So you want to take away a person's self-confidence early on in life, one of the first things that you take away from that person is their voice, their ability to speak up for themselves. And so some of us may have been in a place in our life where we didn't have a voice. Sometimes people, not necessarily out of an abusive home, but may have come out of a home where you had like an authoritarian parent that told you to shut up and sit down, do as I say, not as I do. Like your opinion didn't matter. Like that could have affected your self-confidence and how you express yourself, made you feel like your voice didn't matter. And so we can become adults and be really affected by that. And so sometimes like what happens is like if we kind of been traumatized in that area, we can kind of lean to two ends of the spectrum. So number one is where I just don't use my voice at all. You just become passive, right? You don't speak up for yourself. You don't set any boundaries in your life, all of that. Or you could go to the other end of the spectrum where it's like you don't care about anybody else's voice because you didn't get yours heard. So you're trying to make sure that everybody hears your voice. So you become rude, you interrupt people, you don't let other people express their opinion, you overtalk people just to get your point across. That's the other end of the spectrum. Um, and so, you know, if we're not aware of those things that are happening, they may cause us some issues, right? So voice is important, and it's the way that we express ourselves is important. So that may be an area we can go back, pray, and ask God, is this me? Right? Did somebody not listen to me when I was growing up? So now I make everybody listen to me, or people that listen to me. So I'm afraid to speak up for myself when I know I should. The third one is sensitivity. So some things could have happened that affected the way I respond to other people, and so that's what happened to me the first 3 years of my marriage. I was so remember when we talking about these things, we talking about spectrums, like ends of the spectrum. Really, you want to be in the middle, but maybe one end of the spectrum is I'm insensitive. That's how I was. So like I didn't show affection towards my wife and hold her hand, kiss her, all that type of stuff. Because I came from a situation where I was abused. So like the touching and feeling and stuff, that was seen as that was happening to me when I was being abused. So when I grew up, like I didn't do those things. So I was insensitive to and no feelings, no emotions, right, towards the people that I love, even though I love them. And the opposite end of that spectrum is like not that you're insensitive, you're oversensitive, you're hypersensitive, right? And so every little thing hurts you. People having a conversation in the corner, they're not even talking about you, but you think they're talking about you, right? Feel like everybody's out to get you. Like nobody likes you, nobody wants to help you. That can happen to you because of the things that have happened in your past. So once again, I can go back and use it as a report card and say, am I sensitive to my own needs? Am I sensitive to other people? Am I insensitive? Am I hypersensitive? Do people feel like they've told me they gotta walk on eggshells around me because at any moment I might snap, I might go off, I might lose it. My kids can't even have a conversation with me because they're fearful that I might lose it, I might snap, right? It's a possibility. The next one is stability, keeping a sense of peace. All right, and this is probably the one that I see the most where like men really, really struggle. Um, like is my life a roller coaster? Like, so our lives aren't linear. It's not like A, B, C, D, E. Life don't work that way. Our lives are dynamic. So it's full of stop signs and detours and yellow lights and like so Dr. Banks said it's a journey. It is. But as we're what should be happening is we should be growing and developing based on whatever plan God has for you. But it shouldn't be a roller coaster. Like it shouldn't be, I'm in cycles of pain, like I'm recycling hurt. Feels like in life, I was telling somebody the other day, they were talking to me about their life. I said, I understand why you haven't gotten ahead, because every year or two, you start over. I see people do that part of New Year's resolutions. Their New Year's resolutions is the same resolution every single year. It's just new inspiration. It's not motivation. The motivation is internal. It's just inspiration, right? So they're just saying the same thing over and over, trying the same thing over and over. And by June, they can't even remember what those goals were. And then it's just that idea that I can never be at peace with who I am. And so if you're trying to, imagine trying to lead a family or trying to lead, an organization, and you're unstable. One of the things that God told me that he was looking for in leaders in this end time, one of those characteristics was stability. You don't have to be super talented. You don't have to be super gifted. You don't have to be super anointed. You got to be stable though. People are looking for stable people. When so many things seem so uncertain and so unsure in this world that we're in, people are looking for stability. From day to day, they know who they're dealing with. And so opposite ends of the spectrum, right? When we're talking about stability, we got the person who is unstable. The Bible says in the book of James, chapter 1, let not that person think that he shall receive anything from the Lord. Unstable. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. It means from day to day, I don't know who I am. Day to day, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? Like instability. Like so what would be the opposite of a person who's stable? So the opposite end of that spectrum would be a person who has no flexibility. Right? They have no room in their life for God to tell them what to do, what direction to take them in. This is what I'm going to do, and this is all I'm going to do. Don't ask me to do anything else. And this is where we see tucked inside of this, like the fear of failure. Sometimes the fear of success. So I'm just going to stay right here in this lane in my level of comfortability because I don't want to move in any other direction. Opposite end of that spectrum is the person who has no idea what they're doing in their life. They try anything. They get into anything. No boundaries, no direction, right? And so that's stability. Then the next one would be strategy, the ability to plan my life, the ability to plan my life. So there's things in my life that could have happened that keep me from, and we're talking about manhood, taking the steering wheel and giving my life some direction, taking the steering wheel and giving my life some direction, the ability to be able to plan my life. Now we know ultimately God gives us the plan for our life. But remember, we're working in partnership with God, right? This is a partnership between the God who created us and our ability to live out this life on earth. But there are some men who don't have a plan. They're just kind of getting up, and whatever happens to them, happens to them. Like they're just kind of figuring it out along the way. And so they don't have a clear sense of direction for their life. So some of that could come out of like your background. What happened to you? Right? In my field, they have a be interesting. They give this stuff names, just stuff out of the Bible. They have a personality disorder. It's called dependent. And I've seen this before, but it's where the person can't make their own decisions. They need somebody else to make the decisions for them. And so if somebody else isn't making the decisions for them, they struggle. Right. And so I've even seen that like during marriage counseling, like the wives would just say, I wish he would just choose. I'm working with a couple right now. She's like, I want to let him lead, but I wish he would just choose something. Just give us some roadmap. She's like, well, if he led, I would just follow. And he's struggling. He don't know where to start, how to do it. Right? He never seen it done. Nobody ever showed him. Gave him a roadmap to problem solving and conflict resolution. Not his fault. He just doesn't have the tools. Right? And then we're just looking at this person in this adult body and just assume that he has those skills. Not true. Not true. Our sanity, our ability to make decisions. And so remember, the enemy works in concert with our trauma to make sure that we never have victory. The enemy works in concert with our trauma to make sure we never have victory. So the enemy has no power unless we give him a lane. So he can take a lane through trauma, He could take a lane through disobedience. He could take a lane through sin. Right. And so in these areas, we could become indecisive. I don't know what to choose. Right. And on the opposite end of that spectrum, you could become controlling. You could become controlling. Maybe somewhere in your past, you didn't have control of any of the situations in your life. Maybe you came out of a situation where you were raped, molested, or abused. So somebody was always controlling you. So when you got older, you said, I'm gonna have full control over my life. And then it became demonic and twisted. You want control over everybody's life. I unfortunately know people in leadership that are that way. They control their congregation. You can't get married unless the pastor give you permission to get married. Like you can't go to visit another church unless you get permission from your pastor. Right? It's the end of that spectrum that's out of control. Right? And then so if you want to be given over to the spirit of confusion, this is where it'll happen. This is where it'll happen. And then my surrender, my ability to trust others. The first year of me and your life, we learned whether people were safe or whether we could trust them. How do we learn that? From our parents? Give you an example. So when you cried, you needed your diaper changed, you needed to be fed, you needed to be picked up, you needed to be held, any of that happened to you. And let's say those needs were there and nobody came, well, your little brain was learning was that I can't trust people. Because people don't come when I need them. People don't come when I want them. And if you never get that resolved growing up, you'll become a full adult male and not really trust people. And so what happened is you'll start seeing roller coaster relationships or short-term relationships. Like everybody I get in a relationship with, the relationship ends because something is wrong with them, something they did, right? They got ulterior motives. And that the common denominator in that equation is you, right? It's everybody else seems to be the problem, but at the end of the day, you were involved in that, in those breakups, right? And so this also manifests itself. So those who pastor already understand this. If you don't, you're going into pastoring, please understand this. It also affects the way that people view God, their relationship with the Father. If you grew up and you couldn't trust your father was absent, he abandoned you, whatever the case may be, you can bring that mindset right into your relationship with God because you see him as a father, right? And what do you know about a father? It's the person who leaves you, or it's the person who disciplines you every time you mess up. So now what's your belief in God? That he's some aloof taskmaster sitting in heaven waiting to throw lightning bolts at you when you mess up. You know, there's people who give because of that reason. The only reason they give, because if they don't give, what is God going to do? He's going to curse them. He's going to hurt them. He's going to take their job from them, kill their kids. So that's why they give, right? Remember, we talked, our mind is a part of our soul. The way that I view God is important. Then lastly, my success. I view my future. Like if I believe that I'm going to make it. A lot of men that I talk to, because of what's going on right here, they're doomed before they start. Not because they don't have the skills, not because they don't have the gifts, the talent. It's none of that. We talked about this earlier. They don't believe they even deserve to be in a position that they're in. They got promoted to a supervisory position, and Dr. Banks talked about this. But now the spirit of imposter syndrome is taking over, right? I shouldn't even be here. I'm not capable. I don't have the skills. They should have hired the other person. I don't deserve it. All of these messages that we send ourselves that affect our self-worth, right? And so what happens is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Eventually, we will do the things that it takes to not be in that position, right? All of those things are a component of my soul. My soul is impacted by all of those areas. So I can take these things and go before God and say, okay, God, where am I in each one of these areas? Holy Spirit, do I need healing in these areas of my life? Because I know the help is available in the Word of God. Where in each one of these areas, do I need to be transformed? Remember, the soul is sanctification. That means transformation. Am I insensitive? Holy Spirit, what's the plan for my sensitivity? There's something that happened to me long ago that's affecting the way that I feel for people. I don't have compassion. I don't have empathy. I know I got in trouble with a group of people the other day, but I told them, because they social services workers, I told them, if you don't have compassion and empathy, you need to get up and get out of here. You're in the wrong profession. I don't care how many degrees you got. If you don't have compassion and empathy, you in the wrong profession. You're talking about helping people.
Yes,
Sometimes
sir.
that's gone. People don't have that. And they're in courtrooms, they're in school systems, working with your kids, no compassion, no empathy. Not because something is wrong with them, because something happened to them, maybe earlier on in their life. That's unaddressed, right? So any questions about any of those? I know that was a lot, but I wanted to get through all of them in case I didn't
Pastor,
get to
how
do
we
anything else.
go back and listen to the recording?
I can send you the link to it.
Okay, yeah, because you
Yeah.
know, you done recorded a plenty of them, but I never knew until
So
I just took the decency to ask though.
so
So
I can
yeah.
send I can send you the link, and these recordings, I go put the actual recording on my YouTube channel.
Ah,
So
okay.
if you go look up under the section that says Born For It, I put them under there.
Yeah, but you say you can send me the link too though?
Yeah, I can send you the link too. Mhm.
I mean, I think I'm already subscribed to Born For It, but yeah.
Okay. So this will pop up tomorrow then.
Well,
Pastor
and
Marcus,
if you're not subscribed, please go and make sure you are subscribed.
shameless plug.
Um, yeah, just go ahead and do that. I know he asked about the link. Addison,
Pastor
you ain't got
Marcus,
to. No, you ain't
Pastor
got to
Marcus,
respond.
you want to put it in the chat?
No, I want you to work for it.
I'm just talking about for everybody else so they can know what it looks like, you know.
Yes, sir. I surely will. I thank you. Good suggestion. And you'll be able to get the link as well. But man of God, I wanted to I wanted to wait. Lord knows I wanted to jump in a long time ago and ask a question.
Jump in.
Um no. I think you definitely needed to give all of these 8 areas to us. And as I was thinking as you were speaking, um, it's unfortunate that the culture, and I'm not talking about African American culture, I'm not talking about Caucasian culture, I'm not talking about rich, poor, I'm talking about the culture of trauma. People who have gone through trauma. This is the culture, and if we're not careful, we would honestly accept this stuff to be normal.
Yes.
And I love how you painted the picture of
Yes.
the different ends of the spectrum, where the sensitivity is like, okay, well, yeah, I'm not hypersensitive, but I'm cold and callous, and truth be told, and this is something that I identified going through like an EMDR training and these different trainings for my profession. We've all experienced trauma. So if we look at this list, and I love what you said, pray to the Holy Spirit that God reveals, because we can accept things because we see it. Oh, well, this is how you're supposed to be, or this is how, you're supposed to respond to stuff and things of that nature, when we're really accepting and adopting things that's unhealthy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I love how you communicated that, because man, this is not just for men. This is for everyone that's on the face of the earth, walking, crawling, breathing. And like when you talked about the babies, that attachment early, that child development, if they're crying and nobody comes to change their pamper, like it teaches us not, we can't trust people. And it's unfortunate that so many people, and they wear that as a badge of honor. I hear that so much. I don't trust people. I don't fool with people like that.
I don't
And
do people.
yeah, I don't do people, but not realizing where we should be interdependent. That's the way we're wired. And until we have that conversation and really identify it as unhealthy, there's no need for me to change that. Like,
Mm.
hey, I'm good doing what I'm doing. you might be good, but you're not great because you're unhealthy. You know,
Yeah.
and like I said, we all have that. So man, I thank God for you, and I'm glad that that you're recording this so I can go back. Um, you know, I do believe a pen is better than a short memory. But I do believe, like you say, repetition is a student's glue. So I'm
Yes,
going to
sir.
go back and watch this, because not only is this going to help me, but it's going to also help those I come in contact with, because man, we all can eat on this. And this is a conversation we can talk about forever. I know you said we out of mental health month, but this is life, man. Damaging relationships and all of that. So I thank God for the wisdom. Um, and yeah, you and I, we're gonna talk a little deeper.
And I'll for everybody who wanted, because I know Baron asked me for it. I'll send y'all this PowerPoint as well when we finish talking about it, because I'm gonna have one more month of having this conversation, because it is just more than a mental health month conversation. And then I'll send y'all the final PowerPoint to it. Dr. Banks, I see your hand up.
Yes. One thing as well, when you talk about, I want to speak on two different things. So there's one thing as a oral health provider, to where part of that callousness comes from, because even in my sense, especially in the field that I work in, dealing with the elderly in the nursing homes, one of the reasons how you can get callous in your field is you feel like all you see is the worst of the worst. And when you see the worst of the worst all the time, you start to associate certain people with that behavior. You think everybody is like that. And I think, I can't speak for the people who are in the social work field, but I'm pretty sure that that's a portion of it, is because that's all
Yes.
they see. Same thing with police officers. If you
Yes.
just see if you're just in a certain community and all you're doing is putting them in jail, you think everybody is like that. And
Yes.
then that takes away from seeing them as you dehumanize those people. You
Yes.
dehumanize certain people in certain aspects. And so it's one of the things that I have to kind of fight against, is that, even when I was dealing with when I was working in Clay County in Florida, because I treated mostly poor white people
Yeah.
on Medicaid who didn't know they were poor. But it's like you start to associate, well, you don't give them all the options, because they ain't got the money anyway. They ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I think that's part of what happens in all these different fields. But also on the whole trusting thing, a lot. I can only speak for myself. A lot of times when I didn't really necessarily have the abandonment issue, got the where past traumas are thrown back in my face, where you shared certain things with certain people, and when they got angry with you, they violated that trust
Yes.
by either throwing your past traumas in your face, or as
Yes.
Pastor Marcus and Pastor gets talked about, by throwing your failures in your face. And it just you kind of put a chip on your shoulder, to where I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to share. I'm not going to trust, because if I do, it's going to be shown as weakness, or as what what I'm saying. So it's like, there has to be some sort of not only internal emotional intelligence, but external emotional intelligence, where people who we're in relationships with, and we be vulnerable, we share things. Do not use, when they're angry, use that stuff against you. That's why your mama left you. That's why your daddy such so and so. That's why, or that's why that man put his hands on you, because you don't know how to shut your mouth. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's so much stuff that's perpetuated that
That's good.
that needs to be dealt with. Just wanted to
That's
share those
good.
thoughts.
That's good. And what you were talking about earlier, B, we see a lot of the secondary trauma. You can be around people pain so much, man, it can start affecting you. And so man, I think that's why having a secret place, man, is so important. Elder Robazine, I see your hand.
Okay, hold on. Trying to get in. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Two things. First thing, you talked about cycles, roller coasters. That's me. My life. Okay. There's times when I can get to a place, man, where God is just a blessing. God is moving in my life, and it's a blessing, and it causes you to stay focused and to get in your word. And then there comes a time when it's not so fruitful. and I still stay in my word and I still stay focused, but here the enemy comes in with, you know, we're talking about the mental health, and it's stressful. It's stressful for me because I mean I have a daughter that has disability. I have my wife; she's going through some things, and it gets stressful. So what's a good outlet? That's what I need to know. What's a good outlet?
Um, I think there's more intricate details, you know, that I could give you, but I say let me just normalize what you're saying, because I think we all get attacked. I think we all go through you know, stressful situations. You know, I think we all have problems and, you know, situations and circumstances. Like nobody is absent from that, and the person who's saying that they're not having that is already delusional. So let me start by saying one, that, and then let me just give you something real surface level. So two, um per well, I'll give you two things. So two, perspective is important.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Like, so understanding why things are happening in your life, because if there is not a good perspective of why things will happen, that then controls our reactions to what's happening. So two. And then three, I'll just say to you, Elder Robazine, man, have you a good self-care plan? Have you ever flown on a plane before?
No, sir.
Okay, so if you were to fly on the airplane, for those who flew on planes, they understand this. Like before the plane takes off, there's this stewardess who stands up and she gives this illustration before the plane takes off, and she says if this plane, she said the likelihood of this plane going down is very small, but if it does go down, there's going to be some oxygen masks that are going to fall from the ceiling. And she said when those oxygen masks fall from the ceiling, you're gonna need to put them on. She said, but those of you all who have small kids, she says you're gonna be tempted to take that oxygen mask and put it on your kids before you put it on yourself. She said, but don't. She said, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, then put it on your kids. Because if you try to put it on them first, you may run out of breath and you're not gonna be able to save your kids. Like, what was the moral of that story that she's telling us? I have to learn how to take care of myself first, right? And so sometimes we're trying to take care of other people, and our tank is empty. Sometimes we're trying to take care of and fix other people, and we don't have what we need. And so society will teach you that it's okay to kill yourself in the name of helping somebody else. It's okay for you to prioritize yourself. So I would say to you, first man of God, and we can talk more about it, make sure you're good first. Make sure you're well first. And there's at least 5 areas of your life you and I could talk about that I could show you that you need to be well in. And then when you got enough in your cup, then you can start reaching out to other people. So sometimes a lot of this stuff that we get overwhelmed by is because we're trying to help people on an empty tank. And people will let you do that. I said this on the news. I don't think they like that I said it, but I said this on the news. They were asking me about you know, like a self-care plan and stuff. I said, listen, this is what I learned in life, because I used to sell insurance, life insurance. So I got a chance to see this. People dying, young people. I've seen small caskets, middle-sized caskets, big caskets, right? People getting out of here. You don't know when your time is going to be. But this is what I do know. You will die. And your family may mourn you for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years. And after that, they're going to move on. They're going to get another husband. They're going to get other friends. They're going to get another house. They're going to move on, and you will be in the grave, right? And so sometimes in our ego, we don't believe that. We think, you know, like we have to be here for everybody. We have to do everything for everybody. And I'm not negating responsibility. Y'all know I'm not doing that. But I'm just pointing something out. Man, you got to take care of you, because you are the primary responsible person for taking care of you. That's not other people's responsibility, and they won't. Human nature will get everything out of you they can and then go on about their business. You know, so like just overall general ways, you know, that's kind of what I would tell you, man of God. I think Pastor Marcus was going to say something too.
Yeah, I love what you said. That's something I want to add to my wheelhouse. What you shared with Pastor Robazine. The thing that I wanted to say, and this is what you were mentioning earlier about pastoring, and you've been talking to a lot of pastors here lately. And guys, if y'all are not if y'all didn't pick up what Dr. Butler said, I want to say this to you all. Just because you look up to your man of God and your woman of God and people that's in church, that doesn't always mean they're healthy. It's so important that we learn, and grow in areas of being healthy. And I do
Yes.
believe like there's a lot of times we keep cycles going, or we keep doing things because like that's what we saw. Just like we'll talk about our parents, like, well, that's the way I was raised. And we could be in churches and this is your prayer partner. But a lot of times your prayer partner could be still dealing with trauma and telling you what to do, what not to do, things of that nature. And it's so important that we grow in self-awareness as to why we do things, man, and be that for someone else. As we're continuing to grow, man, grab hold of somebody, build relationships with people, because a lot of times what we're talking about, people can't say, well, man, you know what? I do have a person who's not so passive or not so aggressive. I have a person who's assertive. I have a person who knows how to listen, who's not hypersensitive. Like that's, I believe, like we